Welcome. I'm so pleased to be here today celebrating our 8th graders as they are doing their first of 3 mornings of capstone presentations. It's been a long ride to get to this space and to be able to celebrate you in this new building. But today, we're really here to recognize your hard work and everything you've done to achieve these goals. This is a special day. It's a day that's important to BFCCPS. Today, you'll hear from the first 2 of 6 advising groups made up of this exceptional class of young men and women. Capstone is a shining example of what BFCCPS stands for. Students began this project over 1 year ago by being tasked with a simple direction that they have learned can be incredibly complex to carry out. Make a positive difference in your community. Over the course of the year, students drew upon lessons from each of the 4 pillars BFCCPS is founded on, and that make up our educational philosophy of our school. Over the course of these presentations, you will hear examples of perseverance, empathy, and justice. You will hear how students have leveraged years of service experience to have insight into what parts of their school, local, national, and global communities have need. You will hear how relationships were formed and how students were supported by family and friends to meet their goals. Each student's project story is unique, but what has been and continues to be astounding to me is how each and every one of these students has risen to the challenge that Capstone presents and made that difference in their community. The name Capstone gets its inspiration from an architectural term referring to the final piece of stone that slips into place, completing an archway. In that sense, this project is designed to be one of the final pieces of your education here at BFCCPS, a culmination of what you've learned in your time as a student here. But my wish for you is that you also learn that good begets good, that there is need in your community, and that you, as individuals, today, tomorrow, and every day after, have the intelligence and courage to do something about it. My wish is that you continue to carry these lessons, continue to gain inspiration from your peers, and live your lives in this spirit, not for self, but for others. I congratulate you. You should be proud, and I am incredibly proud of all of you. Now, being a teacher at BFCCPS includes more than just delivering academic content. Advisors play a critical part of the capstone process, guiding students through the process and providing weekly coaching. I'm so appreciative of the hard work and dedication shown by these faculty members and all the support they've given students this year. It's my pleasure to get things started by welcoming our first advisor, who will introduce our first presenter. Please help me in welcoming Ms. Kelleher.
It's capstone time. Let's get rolling. Good morning, students, faculty, parents, and special guests of BFCCPS. As you already know, my name is Grace Tucera. For my capstone, I decided not to work with an organization, but with a teacher over in Arizona who works at Circle Cross Ranch, a school for students in grades K through 8 that does not have much funding towards art in the classroom. It is very easy for me to say that art has always been my favorite class since kindergarten. I absolutely love doodling, painting, and sketching. I am very fortunate to have had access to high-quality art supplies, and I've had some amazing art teachers over the years. Also, art serves as a very helpful tool for me. You probably do not know that I actually have anxiety, and whenever I am feeling stressed, I bust out my sketchbook and draw. In fact, my parents have told me to stop drawing one time. As soon as I found out about the capstone process, I knew that I wanted to raise money for a school somewhere out in the world and buy them art supplies. I felt that I could make a positive difference just by sending crayons, paint, and more to a teacher so the students could have time for art in their school. One day, I was talking to Ms. Lynch, my teacher from 5th grade, with a few other students about capstone. I told her that I wanted to do something involving art. She told me all about the financial struggles in her old school district, since the schools made the teachers buy all the supplies and that many of the students come from low-income families. She said that her best friend still works over in Arizona, and she's a huge supporter of art in the classroom. Immediately, I knew that I wanted to help her out and give her students supplies that they would not have access to otherwise. In order to complete my project, I set out to accomplish 3 goals. My first was to raise at least $200 so I could order art supplies and ship them directly to Ms. Cotton's classroom through an Amazon wish list. My second goal was to create 10 original DIY craft videos with a supplies purchase so that the students could do a few fun projects in their class with their new art supplies. This was my take on doing volunteering, since I definitely could not go all the way over to Arizona. My third goal was to discover and document new ways to reduce my stress. For my first goal, I held a sparkly Beanie Boo raffle in school last June. I co-hosted a hands-on craft demo station with Laura Isaac for Art Week on the Town Common to benefit both of our capstones, and I sent a letter out to the 27 houses in my neighborhood to inform them about my project and ask for donations. All three of these events were highly successful, resulting in $690 for art supplies. In order to achieve my second goal, I set aside time over the weekend and over the summer for filming my videos. I made them all by myself and sent all 10 of them out before the due date of Capstone. The videos ranged from random doodling tutorials to painting emoji kindness rocks. My third goal simply consisted of me testing out techniques while I was stressed out. I experienced a lot of stress when doing the summer geometry course, so I discovered that breaking up the work was best for my mental health, and I spent at least 2 hours one day freaking out while doing math. Thanks, Mr. Afonso. Like every capstone before mine, I had a few minor obstacles, but none stopped me from accomplishing my goals at all. I'm a very busy person, and I was away for a bit in the summer, even over a week at one time. Also, the Amazon wishlist and PayPal invoice were a bit confusing to order from. Thank goodness my dad helped out with these orders, even though he did get a bit frustrated. The end result of my capstone turned out to be amazing. With the money raised, I was able to order a wide range of quality art supplies, from chalk pastels to construction paper. I even got to order a custom sign for a new kindness rocks garden at Circle Cross Ranch. The students loved the art videos, and Miss Cotton said she loved them too. Also, I found out I can reduce my stress in multiple ways, like reading every night before bed, which I still do. I'd love to thank everyone who made my capstone a huge success. Thanks to my family for supporting my project even before it started, my advisors, Miss Fagoni and Miss Kelleher, for helping me start it and finish it, my fellow advisees, Dr. Levering for approving my art week, my Beanie Boo raffle, Mateo Calavero, Stacy David, and Kay Kelly for helping me with my art week event, Lorelei Isaac for co-hosting the art week craft, Ms. Lynch for being such a wonderful person and getting me my contact, and Ms. Cotton for being such a pleasure to work with, those anonymous people out there who bought raffle tickets, made paper cranes at Art Week, and donated, and all of you guys for listening. Doing this project made me get a better sense of the world. I learned that sadly, not everyone has the money to do what they love, and that should not have to be a problem. Schools should not cut art programs, for art is educational. It lets kids unleash their creativity, and it's therapeutic too. It really comes down to the fact that doing a little act of kindness can go a real long way. Even though I didn't find a cure for cancer or stop world hunger, I made a bunch of kids happier, just by bringing art supplies into their lives. Thank you so much for listening. Good luck to everyone else presenting today, and remember, you can help change the world with a little bit of kindness too.
Students, parents, faculty, and everyone else who is listening, good morning. Whenever people here in America learn about North Korea in the media, they usually scoff and change the channel, which is totally understandable. The North Korean regime is known for its threats, rising tensions, and brutality. What hasn't been said about it? Well, how about the people who live there? People living in North Korea feel the full effects of the Kim regime, and many of them choose to flee, which we call defectors. Sadly, not a lot of defectors come out of their journey for freedom. So for my capstone project, I want to help these defectors by sending them pen pal letters of support and monetary donations to fund their scholarship to study abroad. To get my project done, I partnered with the North Korean Refugee Assist, or the NKRA, an organization in the Western United States that helps out the Moon Chang-gil Foundation in South Korea, which is a school for defectors to go to after escaping. This is because the North Koreans who choose to escape miss out on most education. Finally, for my personal goal, I want to not pass in any late assignments in all my classes. A very important skill, or so I've been told. To track my progress with this goal, I use a point system to give myself points if I turn in an assignment early or on time. No matter what country or what side you're on, everyone on the Korean peninsula is Korean. Since my family is Korean, I am personally connected to these defectors. That's why I chose to focus on them. To actually execute my plans into action, I decided to hold a raffle in June 2019, where participants could either enter a pen pal letter or $1 to get a ticket. To quote my advertisement from that event, just by being nice and writing a pen pal letter, you could win a prize for free.
Although coming off as charming and simple, I really wanted people to know that these were going to former North Koreans, and I'm happy that so much of our school community participated, or at least had it in their minds. In fact, when I went around to collect the envelopes containing donations, some students and teachers talked to me about how amazing it was to be sending letters to former North Koreans. Much like other capstones, there were a few obstacles. In my original plans, I wanted to send over physical letters to the defectors in South Korea, but unfortunately for me, South Korean postage isn't confidential. If looked at by the wrong person, the defectors could be in trouble. So, I sent over the pen pal letters via email, scanning them and typing them up. The second obstacle pertained to my personal goal. I simply didn't need my assignment tracker over the summer. If there's no school, I didn't need a tracker. The only school-related activities to do was my capstone, which was almost complete, and a summer reading book. I couldn't really help this issue, but once school started up again in the fall, so did the personal goal, and I was back on track, tracker tracking away. The results of my capstone, to me at least, were absolutely stunning. I managed to raise 29 letters to go to defectors in South Korea, which would hopefully give them support after a treacherous journey. A total of $256 was raised to go to a defector's scholarship, essential for them to start a new life in freedom. As for my personal goal, I awarded myself 57 points for handing in assignments early or on time. These results, again, impressed me, and I'm pretty sure they will for years to come. Doing this project, I have come out with a bit more understanding of what the people of North Korea go through every day. Between reading 2 books about defector journeys and seeing the responses to the pen pal letters, I'm glad that I was able to help these fortunate group of Koreans, as they are deemed condemned by their home country. As I stand at the end of my project, I truly do feel accomplished. Now, I have to give out a whole bunch of thank yous. Thank you to Mr. Frank Alsworth for being my contact at the NKRA for this entire year of my project. John Chow and the Hong Chango Foundation for allowing me to send my pen pal letters to the defectors. My advisors, Mrs. Fagoni, Mrs. Kelleher, and as well as Mrs. Mooney over there, for helping me succeed. My advising group, for being wonderful and understanding. My family, for helping me decide on this topic. Mrs. Sunday and Mrs. Kaplan, they're over there, for approving my project in the first place. Ben Kearns, that handsome fellow up there, who suggested the point system for my personal goal, and to everyone who participated in my raffle. You guys helped me a lot. And of course, even though cliche to death, I'd like to thank you for listening to my project and all the ups and downs. Thank you.
Before I say anything, I just want to say I'm really nervous-sighted. That's nervous and excited. That's my little commentary, by the way. Welcome, family and faculty. My name is Alice Kirchner, and what I did for my capstone is I raised money for new guitars for our school, BSUCPS. I wanted to do this because when my grades started playing the guitar in 7th grade, I realized that the guitars are pretty bad. The guitars are basically falling apart, like literally. I see Mrs. Warren, Miss Warren. So I made my capstone all about being determined to get new nice guitars for our school. Okay, so my first goal was all about going to stores and asking them to sponsor the guitars I wanted to buy. What I mean by that is I want to go to businesses and ask if they would be willing to give me $130 for a guitar, and in return I'd put their logo on the guitar so they would sponsor the guitars. I thought this would be a great idea because it would give me a ton of guitars and I hope to start in this fall and summer. My second goal is all about doing a raffle for the whole entire school. I love toys, and I know a lot of kids love toys too, so I made a big toy raffle. There were so many toys. There were stuff to My Little Pony to Minecraft. All the money of the raffle went right to the new guitars, and the raffle was a major success. All the little kids loved it. I made this amazing announcement for the raffle, and everyone loved it too. I got the raffle done in the middle of October, and I started the raffle like a day after my idol's birthday, so that was cool too. Lastly, my third goal, my favorite goal. My third goal is about educating everyone about music. I want to, as you probably learned, I love music. I thought it'd be amazing to educate kids about punk rock stuff. To do this crazy idea, I want the morning announcements. On the morning announcements, I talk about all sorts of things. I talk about Dave Vidian. He's the bloke on the screen. And he's from the First Bridge punk band. And I talked about punk history stuff too. Like I talked about CBGB's closing down. If you don't know, CBGB's is a punk club. This goal was so fun. I loved every second of it. I did this goal at the same time as my raffle, so in the summer. not summer, October, I misspoke. So, my struggles. I know this is very generic, but I procrastinate so much, it is not funny. I procrastinated, especially this summer. I mean, it's the summer, I do not want to do work. So that was one thing. The other horrible thing was my first goal, the sponsored guitars one. My mom has family that has a small company, so I asked them what's the best way to go to stores and ask for money. And they said that stores despise that. Just as I didn't want to get blacklisted from stores. I made a really big decision, and I just scrapped that goal. Yeah. So my major successes, one really big thing for me is that my toy raffle got, get ready for this, my toy raffle raised $522. That's a lot, like a lot. My other success is that all that money got me 4 guitars. I thought 4 guitars wasn't that much, but Mr. Heater said it was amazing, so I guess 4 guitars is good. In the end, I learned that I cannot trust myself because I'm bad at playing things and stuff like that. We also learned that I'm good at public speaking. I did do a lot of public speaking for the toy raffle. Capstone gave me a lot of nervous breakdowns, but I'm glad we made it through. Now all my thank yous. Thanks to Mrs. L, my old advisor, Ms. Shelchek, my current advisor, my advising group, these weirdos right here. I saw thank yous. My best friends, Acalia, Brooke, and Kira, they're right there. Dr. Levering, Mr. Heater, Mrs. Fagoni, and my parents. And before I leave, I want to end off with a quote by Joe Strummer from The Clash. Without people, you're nothing. If you go to any country, any place, there's people there.
Welcome parents, faculty, and students of BUCCPS. My name is Giovanna Mogaro, and for my capstone project, I chose to work with the Medfield Animal Shelter. The shelter's priority is to rescue lost and abandoned animals and care for them until they are taken in by a nurturing owner. In order to initiate my capstone process, I had to come up with 3 goals to accomplish throughout the course of the year. For my first goal, I decided to raise awareness by walking dogs in my neighborhood. My second goal was to hold the silliest pet competition in the school to raise money for the shelter. As for my third goal, or personal goal, I'd envisioned to keep myself organized. I chose to work with the shelter due to knowing the exhilaration of having an animal. In fact, I have 2 dogs, both of whom I received from an animal shelter, which means I understand how much an animal can affect a family. As briefly discussed above, my first goal was to walk dogs in my neighborhood. I accomplished this with the intentions to raise awareness for the Medfield Animal Shelter. I created flyers that were spread around my neighborhood. I executed my first goal by discussing what my capstone was primarily about and how I plan on going about it to my neighbors. My first goal was finished in the last weeks of August, or more towards the end of the summer. I had my close friend Alex attend the dog walks with me to keep me company. She documented most of what was going on and provided pictures of what I took with the dogs. For my second goal, I decided to host a silliest pet competition, which would occur throughout the school substantially in grades kindergarten through 5th. I implemented this in an attempt to accumulate money for the shelter. I constructed a basket filled with amusing toys for the winner. The students would have to present me with the photo of their pet looking and or acting humorous. This took place throughout the week of November 4th through 8th, and I visited each classroom every day to gather pictures. I, along with my advising group, spent advising time figuring out which photo would be most worthy of the prize. I was extremely impressed with the collaboration of my group when determining the winner. My third goal, also known as my personal goal, was to remain organized throughout the capstone process. I knew ahead of time that my mind would become stressed and I would worry about future deadlines. Not to mention that I do not have the greatest record for keeping my papers neat, and they tend to end up almost anywhere in my binder. In an effort to look past this, I provided myself with a planner that would keep me on track. The planner supplied a reliable way for me to handle all my many due dates. I felt more put together once I obtained a planner and believe this is an ideal goal when completing capstone efficiently. I educated many in the process of capstone on the impact my project would make, along with the support an animal shelter provides to animals. I attained only a minor amount of obstacles regarding my capstone. The issues concerning my first goal were that I had initially anticipated on walking dogs towards the beginning of the summer. Unfortunately, due to my highly distracted self, I did not complete it until the end, as I mentioned. For my second goal, I had begun to discuss my yellow sheet with Dr. Levering when he brought to my attention some subordinate matters that would need to be fixed. Soonly after, I felt more ready to commence my competition. My third goal had the least amount of obstacles that I had to overcome. I had forgotten my planner a couple of times in my backpack while discussing due dates for homework. I learned numerous things while going about my capstone process, such as communication skills, personal skills, and organization. I was extremely pleased with the amount of success I had in my capstone project. I surpassed my first goal by walking a lot of dogs. In addition, I spoke to many adults about my capstone who were not educated about the process prior to this. For my second goal, I collected more money than I had expected. Originally, I planned on only receiving $50, but unwittingly raised well over $100. In doing so, I had the ability to communicate with several children to inform them of my capstone and my goals, in which they would assist me to complete them. For my third goal, I surprised myself in the amount of organization I could have. Throughout my project, there were ups and downs, there were tears and smiles, but I persevered through all the negatives, although deep down I never thought I could. I would like to thank many people for the support and comfort I was provided with through my capstone. For one, I would like to thank the person who assisted me in my attempts at making an impact, Marlene Simmons. Marlene was my contact throughout my project, and I would have never succeeded my goal if not for her. I would also like to thank my advising group in attempts at making me laugh and relieving my stress through chat packs. I would like to thank Dr. Levering for providing me with beneficial input on how my capstone could be more influential. My grandparents for allowing me to advertise my walk in their neighborhood. My parents, more specifically my mother, for not hesitating to raise her voice at me when something was due. Also, Mrs. L, my past advisor, for accompanying me throughout the beginning of my capstone and making sure all would go smoothly. Capstone is always something children dread, but because of the teachers, the journey is a lot smoother. That is why I would like to thank my advisor, Ms. Hurlichek. You had a tremendous impact on the outcome of my capstone, and I could not say any less. Lastly, a big thanks to all of you for listening to so many speeches along with mine. I hope you all have a good day, and good luck to the remaining speakers.
Next, please welcome Ashley Blumman.
Lack of clean water, sanitation, and unfamiliarity with good hygiene practices kill more people every year than all acts of war and violence, auto accidents, and HIV/AIDS combined. Just in the Honduras alone, 638,000 people lack access to drinkable water, a basic necessity, and 1 million lack access to basic sanitation. But I can help reduce the numbers of people who have to suffer through this. Hello students, faculty, and guests. My name is Ashley Ballman, and I chose to provide clean water to an underserved community called Trojes for my Capstone project. The municipality of Trojes is located in the southeast of Honduras. In this region, 70% of households do not have access to safe drinking water. Instead, they use water directly from the river, which is highly contaminated. Over half the population in Trojes does not have a toilet or latrine, which is why most of the water sources available to them are contaminated with human waste. When looking for an organization to work with, I made sure that they would actually keep these promises of clean water long-term and not just for a limited time. This is why I chose to work with Pure Water for the World, or how they say it in the Honduras, Agua Pura para el Mundo. In partnership with UNICEF, in 2009, they launched a water and sanitation project in the Trojes region, which was identified as high need and underserved. They not only provide water filters for families, but they also provide a sanitation education system called WASH, which stands for Water, Sanitation, and Hygiene. So far, they were able to help 120,000 people in Honduras and El Salvador have access to safe drinking water. My parents always told me stories from their youth and how they had to get up in the morning and walk miles and hours to and from the river to collect water in buckets to use throughout the day. They acted like it was a normal everyday thing that everyone did, which upset me since they had to struggle so much just to get water. Now I ask you, what do you do to get water? Walk to the sink and turn on the tap water and that's it. Imagine yourself doing what they did every morning before school just to get water. I've always felt guilty that I had it so easy and cannot believe such a simple necessity is still not available for so many people even today. So once I realized I had the opportunity to help people that suffer through this every day, I chose this issue as my topic. To make sure I had my priorities set, I chose 3 goals that I wanted to complete throughout my capstone. For my first goal, I decided to raise funds to support my organization in their mission. At first, I wanted to volunteer somehow and help them directly. I realized that was close to impossible for me, since their office is located in Tegucigalpa, Honduras, and that is approximately 3,732.2 miles away from where I live. So I had to scrap that idea since I can't afford a plane to go there, and I don't want to spend 64 hours of my life in a car to get there. Instead, I decided to make and sell food to raise funds. During the summer, I sold homemade empanadas and an Ecuadorian dessert called espumilla at the Fino Field Park in Milford on weekends. I wanted to raise at least $50 by doing this. I was able to make and sell about 15 bags of my delicious product each day, and as a result, I raised $222, which surpassed my original goal by $170. For my original goal, For my second goal, I decided to inform my community about this crisis. I didn't make flyers to passively hand out. Instead, I talked to my customers. I held a conversation with them and tried to make them relate to the people who go through this hardship today. My community at home is largely made up of Hispanics, but the people I was talking to were Ecuadorians. Just like my parents, most if not all of them went through the same issue back then as many still do today in developing countries like the Honduras. They understood that what these people were going through and donated money, which they had to since I'm selling this food at a price and they had no choice. For my last goal, I wanted to be more organized and get my life back together, for the most part. I'm a messy person and I really need to improve my organizational skills so I won't lose papers and to keep track of assignments. To accomplish the goal, I bought an agenda. I write down any assignments or events that occur in or out of school, but this system didn't really work well for me. Obstacles I faced during this project were leaving things until the last minute like most people do. To overcome this obstacle, I used a trick. I would tell myself that I would do that thing for as little time as possible, like studying for 30 seconds. As soon as I started, I would realize that it wasn't so bad and kept doing it. Another thing that didn't go so well was my agenda system. I didn't really look at it as often as I should, so instead I went home and typed my homework on a Google Doc titled Stuff I Have to Do or Else I'm Going to Fail School and Be a Huge Disappointment to my parents. And it became a routine ever since. Anyways, enough about that. To end off this presentation, I want to thank the following people for supporting me throughout my capstone process. My mother for making the food with me and being there when I really needed her. My advising group for supporting me. Mr. Alfonso, my advisor, for helping me with every step throughout my project. Tanya for helping me with literally everything and for making me laugh every advising block. Maria Enestrosa, the Central American Director of Pure Water for the World. Oscar Andino, the project coordinator in Rojas, and all the staff who worked so hard to deliver water filters to families, despite the difficult terrain. Last but not least, I want to thank you for sitting here for many minutes and listening to my speech. Thank you and have a high-quality rest of your day.
Education. It is something that is viewed as the norm in our country. In fact, it can be dismissed by some as a daily burden, even a waste of time. And we often take it for granted. But education has the ability to dispel ignorance, making way for innovation and change, making way for the future. It is a spark that ignites curiosity in future scientists, writers, and leaders. Thomas Jefferson once said, to penetrate and dissipate the clouds of darkness, the mind must be strengthened by education. Today, we need this more than ever. Good morning, everyone. My name is Isabel Mitchell, and for my capstone project, I chose to work towards improving girls' education rights, but She's the First, an organization dedicated to supporting girls around the world in their pursuit for education. They team up with local organizations in underprivileged countries to ensure that girls have the resources they need to complete a full education. From the very beginning of the capstone project, I knew that this is what I wanted to focus my project on. Education has always been such a significant part of my life, and I believe it is something everyone should have the opportunity to experience. Yet, over 300 million girls and women around the world experience appalling obstacles, ranging from cultural gender bias to war, that prevent them from even getting a basic education. I wanted to bring attention to this with my capstone. For my first goal, I organized and led a month-long STEM group for young girls at our school in grades 3 through 5. This club was free because I wanted to make the STEM group available to all who wanted to participate, to reach and inspire as many girls as possible. And it would have been pretty ironic for me to charge, considering my whole project is about helping the underprivileged. A total of 38 girls signed up for the club, surpassing my original goal of 8, which at first seemed ridiculously overwhelming, but with the incredible help of Mrs. Urkovic and a few of my amazing friends, we were somehow able to manage through all the tears, screaming, and teeth. The club met 5 times throughout the month of October for an hour and a half after school. The girls voted to build avalanche barriers as their project. They learned about the science behind avalanches and real-life barriers. They also learned about and applied the engineering design process and built their own barriers using basic materials. I also collected donations, raising a total of $120. Despite the late nights I spent organizing, planning lessons, collecting materials, communicating with parents, and more, I would not trade the experience for anything else. I learned so much, like apparently lesson plans are actually something you have to do. Teachers, I sympathize. It was so rewarding and is something I will never forget. For my second goal, I wanted to spread awareness about this issue around my neighborhood. I went with my little brother Nicholas and May, passing out flyers with information about my project and educating my neighbors about my cause. I also collected donations, raising a total of $155. For my third goal, I wanted to raise money for my organization through tutoring. I felt that tutoring was a way to both raise funds and awareness for my cause while also helping others. I tutored 4 different people, raising $80 for my organization. From the very beginning, Mr. Alfonso made it very clear to us that procrastination was not an option to have some personal goal. That did not go down well with many people, including me. I have what some may call the worst procrastination problem ever. So I decided to focus on what was a large component of that problem, my phone. At the start of the project, I spent an average of about 4.5 hours a day recreationally on my phone. This not only hugely contributed to my procrastination, but also took away from other things I wanted to be doing, like going outside, practicing instruments, and spending time with family and friends. Using the app time limit feature on the iPhone, I sought to spend under 2 hours per day on my phone. I gave the bypass password to my friend Lorelai, who I knew would be relentless in giving it up. And relentless she was. There were some very heated arguments that took place over this, as you can see by these highly sophisticated text conversations. Fortunately, I pulled through, and I would say I saw a significant increase in both my productivity and my general welfare as an effect of this goal. I am very happy with that, and I plan to continue using the feature going forward. Throughout my project, I faced various obstacles. With my first goal, I had initially planned to host my club after school at the Franklin Library in May, but their limited schedule availability set my timeline back significantly, and I ended up pushing the club to until the fall and hosting at the new school. Originally, with my tutoring goal, I advertised a tutor in the summer as it worked best with my schedule, but I did not receive any requests, prompting me to advertise into the school year. This was effective, and I was able to tutor 4 students. Overall, I believe my project was a success. I raised a total of $355 for She's the First and exceeded all of my goals. I believe that both through these donations and the other aspects of my project, I made an impact. Though it was definitely hard and felt impossible at times, Capstone was such a fulfilling and rewarding experience. I have grown and learned so much from it, and I'm so appreciative that I was able to make a difference towards a cause I am passionate about. Before I leave you today, there are a few people who made this project possible that I would like to thank. First, thank you to my incredible advising group for helping me through this whole process, my parents for driving me across the continent and back, my entire family, especially Nick, for being with me the whole way, and She's the First for allowing me to work with you towards such an amazing cause. Special thanks to my demon darlings, Lorelai, Leah, Nawila, and Lauren, for helping me to do the impossible and somehow keeping me sane. To Mrs. Urkovic for always being there for me and being the best mentor I could have asked for. And last, but certainly not least, my incredible advisor, Mr. Afonso. I know it is said often, but it could not be more true in this instance that I could not have gotten through it without you. And finally, I want to say thank you to you all for listening to all of us. If you take one thing away from these presentations, I want it to be this. I want you to know that anyone can make a difference. I know it can oftentimes be discouraging when it's so hard to see the impact one person has on the world. But big or small, everyone who has presented these past few days put everything they had into changing someone's world. And someday, together, that will be enough to change the entire world. Thank you and have a great day.
In the spirit of our students, I too have a list of people that I would like to thank. First, I would like to start with State Representative Jack Roy and State Representative Michael Soder for joining us today. I know your schedules are super busy, but it means a lot for us that you took time out to come here, so thank you very much for your time. I would also like to take the time to thank Mrs. Kaplan and Mrs. Sunday, our Capstone coordinators, for all of the work that they did for us. Advisors, the two who presented today, Mr. Afonso and Mrs. Magaro, as well as Mrs. Mooney, Mrs. Kelleher, Mrs. Fagone, Mrs. Hurlichek, Mrs. Lariviere, and Mr. McSweeney, who presented on yesterday and on Wednesday. Special thank you to Mrs. Lariviere, who retired from BFCCPS last year, started her 7th grade students on their capstone projects, and came back this year to watch all 3 days of our capstone presentations and support the students who she started along the way. So thank you. Dr. Levering, Mrs. Scherer, Mr. Healy, Mr. Perna, Mrs. Schwab, Mrs. Tappan, Mrs. Basili, Mrs. Fallon, and the faculty and staff that supported our students throughout their projects. Thank you so much for your dedication. And finally, I would like to thank our grade 8 room parents, Lisa Bogner, Iris Park, and April Hugona, who helped throughout this process, as well as Susan Ferreira, Gilmyra Mascado, Karen Warren, and John Riga for your help putting together today. Finally, thank you to all of you who attended our presentations today, as well as the last 2 days, and for your support of your students throughout this process. It truly is what shows our mission is the parent support for this project, what the students learn along the way, the community service that they do, as well as the character that they exhibit throughout this process. But it would not be possible without their parents' support of this process, as well as the school. So thank you all very much for everything you did for your students.